A very special welcome to Bite Size Info Edition 4. All Bite Size Info clips are housed on the Tropical Bites website, so please visit that if you'd like to see the others. Today's Bite Size Info is on scouting. There is so much division over this topic, making it a rich and interesting one to explore, but today we will cover just 3 simple questions. What is it? Why is it done? And how is it done? Scouting is covered in almost every JAF story, but for one in-depth story on a related topic, read the one on pest management. Should suppliers be interested in advertising, it is here that your advert would appear. All the relevant detail is on tropicalbites.coza under the Advertise tab. Okay, let's get into it. First off, what is scouting? The simple answer is that scouting is research. It is going out into the orchards to see what's out there. In reality, scouting simply means checking. Just like we check the crop before harvesting, or we check the vegetative growth before cutting or spraying, or we check soil moisture levels before irrigating. In our context today, though, we're talking about checking the insect activity before acting. This is especially important because our action often involves deadly poisonous chemicals with horrible side effects, but that's a topic for another day. So the answer to our first question is simply that scouting is the gathering of information on the insect life in the orchards. Our next question is why scout? Scouting gives us the knowledge we need to make sound decisions on insect management. Just like moisture probes tell us whether any interventions are required to manage soil moisture, so scouting will tell us whether any interventions are required to manage insect activity. Please note that most successful farmers don't only scout for pests, they scout to assess orchard life as a whole. Just as you would take both rain and drought into consideration when irrigating, so one should be informed about insects that will help protect your crop as well as those that will damage it. Taking full advantage of the free help on hand is always wise. So the next question is answered. We scout to make better informed farm management decisions. At this stage, it's important to address calendar spraying. Calendar spraying is what some farmers choose to do rather than scout. It involves taking an average of an insect's life cycle and spraying chemicals at those intervals throughout the season. There are a few reasons why this isn't recommended by most entomologists. But the main one is because insects' life cycles don't work by human days, they work by heat units. So, in a warmer season, when their life cycles are moving faster, your spray program will fall behind and they will damage the crop before the spray. In cooler seasons, when their life cycles are slower, your spray program will fall ahead of their life cycle and you will waste the spray on insects that aren't yet there. Worse still, the other orchard life is almost always adversely affected by any chemical. Imagine spending money, time, and effort on a poorly timed spray that leaves you in a worse position than you were before. Scouting actually informs so much more than just when to spray. It also provides feedback on the efficacy of an intervention, whether that was spray or anything else. It also informs where the hotspots are, so we can keep tabs on those and treat isolated areas if required. This saves money, time, and effort. It also informs us when not to intervene, like when the insects are not at the right stage in their life cycle to succumb to the chemical we're using, or if the numbers of beneficials are sufficient to maintain a natural balance in the orchard. So I hope that why successful pest management requires scouting has been landed. Finally, let's look at how. Firstly, successful farmers immerse themselves in understanding insects. You can also employ people who know insects to advise you, but motives are key in advice, and not everyone has your best interests at heart. Either way, it requires knowledge to make decisions. It's important to know how the mouth parts work, what the skeleton of the insect is made of, how it digests food, etc. By knowing this information about harmful pests, we can start figuring out how to protect our crops. By knowing what life cycle stages the insects go through may give us clues as to when they're easiest to control. For example, most insects have a phase that they spend in the soil, which is an opportunity to use fungi more effectively. Obvious advantages come from knowing what your enemy eats, where and when, even if it's only to provide this food source as a diversion away from your fruit. Key to controlling pest numbers is understanding their reproduction. Any disturbance in this area will have long-term positive results. Left alone, nature will bring all creatures into balance, so it makes sense that we understand how nature would do that and employ some of the same strategies. Sometimes knowledge of the relationships between insects will give us clues about their next move. For example, coconut bugs and two-spotted stink bugs generally don't share the same space. So, by monitoring the numbers of less harmful coconut bugs in a mac orchard may indicate when two spots are on the way. Knowing what weather conditions an insect prefers and overlaying this with weather forecasts will provide insight into insect activity. All this knowledge equips a farmer to make wise, cost-effective decisions on control, which is the outcome of scouting. That covers the knowledge issue pretty well, but we still haven't clarified how to scout. I have learned that scouting is not simply nuking one tree once a week and seeing what falls out. It's a lot more than that, but there really isn't one right solution for all farms, so I will instead share what I feel are the top 6 factors of successful scouting. On the best farms, I've found that all staff are on the lookout for what's happening in the orchards, especially regarding insect activity. There is always a core team of specialists, but the irrigation crew, the fertilizing crew, the harvesters, they all keep a lookout for issues and report the details, even if it's just to direct the specialists to the affected area. Consistent and accurate records allow for trends to be monitored in detail. The best farmers know what has been where, when, and how. Overlaid on these records are details of the interventions taken so that efficacy and longevity are also monitored. Good farmers scout. The best farmers scout thoroughly. They make sure that the team is laying a proper blanket under the scouted trees and record all the insects collected. Half-hearted scouting will deliver half-hearted results. Scouting is not about one moment in time. It's about all the patterns and movements. Rather than shooting from the hip, observe and track the enemy and ensure that you're dealing with him in the most efficient and effective manner. As we know, insects are nature's cleanup crew. They're often on site to deal with material that requires disposal, a bit like vultures. It's important to know where your problem actually lies. Is it with the sick tree and finding out what is causing that? Or are you going to waste your time exterminating the cleanup crew? Killing the vulture will not resurrect the beast. Obviously, there's another possibility, and that is that you have an epidemic that requires control before you're left without a crop. But the best farmers know the difference between these two situations. Most hotspots are more about poor soils or diseased weak trees than they are about the insects. Investigate fully before reacting. Calibration is imperative. Work with correct dosages and proper equipment. Both accuracy and precision is vital. Timing is so important. Scouting tells you when and where the insects are. For example, that they rest in the treetops at night. It also provides insight on how to avoid negatively impacting pollinators and beneficial parasitoids. Follow-up scouting is vital. It's the only way to know whether what you did worked or missed the mark, and you need to know why. In short, scouting enables responsible, precise, and accurate chemical use. And so it is that our best farmers are not fearful of the insect life in their orchards. Instead, they leverage it where they can and control responsibly when it's harmful. And this can only be achieved through adequate scouting. I trust this has been an insightful, albeit simple, look at scouting. Remember that advert pages will appear again at the end of each edition. Please share this opportunity with companies you know will benefit from putting their brand in front of this audience. Until next time, God bless.